Faizon Brandon, who at Elite 11 camp got tabbed with the highest upside. That's pretty strong because he was already considered one of the top handfuls of quarterbacks in the nation in the 2026 class. It's funny, you hear a lot about Faizon Brandon, and I'm going to tell you a lot of it's just smoke. So, in the course of his recruitment, and I've covered enough of these to know, I think Patrick Ramsey was one of the more evident that he was kind of found early. Cornerback in the NFL, played for Brentwood Academy, and wait, is it Patrick Ramsey the corner?
Jalen Ramsey.
Jalen Ramsey, excuse me. Sorry. Okay,
Isn't
so
Patrick
anyway,
Ramsey the quarterback that Steve Spurrier just wrecked his career?
he destroyed it. Okay, so Jalen Ramsey, I'm sorry, was kind of one of those guys that got found early. Everybody knew he was going to Florida State, and he committed, and then he wasn't, and he was, and then he went to some camps, and he wasn't that good. Well, that's a lot of talk from other recruiters at other schools. Caleb, that's exactly what that is. And that is not anything I would put a lot of stock in. Now, when I see a guy at On3 say he has the most upside, I think that says a lot. The other thing that says to me is at 6'3", he is not massive like Cam Newton. So I'm curious what the most upside means. I read into it, and it was his mobility. So I think that's huge. And let me ask you, hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. How important is mobility in a quarterback? Does Faizon Brandon have it? And let's look at some other prospects that were in Knoxville over the weekend.
Where do you stand? Hot or cold? Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee. Cityheatandair.com. On Off the Hook Sports.
All right, go, Caleb. Hot or cold?
And for hot or cold, we could just say Caleb or Dave. I'm kidding.
I would say mobility. I'm going to make you say hot or cold because it's somewhere in the middle, right? I mean, you don't want to stiff out there, but you also don't necessarily need Mike Vick. So
I'm hot on Faizon Brandon's mobility and how good it is. I watched his feet. It's not. He doesn't run as awkwardly as Nico Amaliava ran.
Okay, but two questions. I want to get to that one too. Just in terms of this offense needing above average mobility, are you hot that Tennessee's quarterback needs that? Or are you cold that they can do fine without it?
Oh, I'm cold. I think without mobility, you can still be good. I've seen Heupel's system work really well with immobile quarterbacks in the past. Drew Lock wasn't mobile when he was at Missouri, and when Heupel was at Missouri, and they were out here with absolutely no talent around them, putting up 400 yards a game in the SEC. So I do think that mobility helps. It depends on the type of quarterback you are. If somebody like Joe Milton, for instance, who was mobile, should have used his legs a lot more. Because he just wasn't the best passer, and he didn't want to use his legs, and that was a huge mistake on his part. And so I think for him, the mobility mattered. I think for Hendon Hooker, the mobility took Hooker from who could have been a good quarterback in Heupel's system to just incredible. I think you and I would both agree on that, right? Hooker's mobility. Nico's was a little bit different. I do think that he wasn't. I think Nico's mobility was actually fine. I think there were just other issues with the offense in terms of his passing. So that's a lot of word salad to say. I'm cold in general, probably on it being a necessity to be good in this offense.
I don't think it needs to be a necessity at all. I think decision making needs to be a necessity. I think there were even times Hendon Hooker early. Now everybody's like this, okay? So I'm not knocking. There were times when he seemed unsure whether or not he should run the football. There were definitely times where Joe Milton was unsure whether or not to run the football. I would say the same for Nico. So to me, there's some uncertainty that's breeding into the decision-making process. That to me is a troublesome thing. Yeah, I know that I've covered quarterbacks. The offense was this simple, or especially earlier in their career. If somebody got hurt, is that guy open? Yes, throw it. If he's not, run it. So let's turn to the weekend here. And as Tennessee with a big recruiting weekend over the weekend. But I think Faizon Brandon, is is somebody to be excited about. And I talked to some people over the weekend that think he's pretty darn good. So hot or cold, are you hot or cold on Faizon Brandon? Let me get this in. Brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatingair.com.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
All right. So a lot of you may not know. Here is the way the recruiting calendar works now. It's now. Okay. So in the middle of June and the middle of July is when you're going to determine largely the foundation of your recruiting class. Tennessee is very fortunate, and they have a Brandon Brandon, excuse me, to lay the foundation for him. Now, that being said, how significant is that before we talk about some recruits over the weekend? Hot or cold, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Having an elite quarterback helps you recruit other elite prospects, hot or cold?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. For two reasons, by the way, two big reasons. One, just the natural, obvious aura of the elite quarterback. People are going to see that and say, I want to go play at that program because I want to catch passes from him. But the other part, and this is a big one, the good ones do a lot of recruiting on their own. I mean, Dave, how many connections does George McIntyre have with all the elite athletes in the state? He's probably met them all, right? Being at Tennessee. And Faizon Brandon has connections with all the elite athletes in North Carolina. He's probably met them all. This was a big knock against Nico. Nico, I would say, was too quiet. And I don't think he recruited for California. I don't think he was connected to California. He didn't recruit for Tennessee at California. I think Faizon will recruit for Tennessee at North Carolina, where Tennessee needs to poach some talent, particularly with Bill Belichick there now. George McIntyre is going to do it for Tennessee within the state of Tennessee, which is a big deal. And I believe Jake Merklinger from Georgia could potentially recruit from Georgia. I don't think he has the same connections, though, that I think Brandon and McIntyre have, because Brandon and McIntyre are so much more highly touted than those two. So with that in mind, I'm actually very, very, very hot on what Faizon Brandon brings to the table. And, to get back to it with his style of play, while mobility is not a necessity to be good in this offense, it certainly helps. And Brandon's got the type of mobility with his legs that's exactly what you want. Now, again, we're not going to know neck up until we see him on campus. No one else. And
now,
no one can.
What about fit? Because you are the one that famously said that Nico Iamaleava was developed in a lab for Josh Heupel's offense. Well, this sounds kind of similar. Tom Luganbill saying that he thinks that Faizon Brandon and Tennessee is the best fit between player and team among the elite 11 quarterbacks. Tom Luganbill, longtime ESPN analyst and quarterback analyst, saying Tennessee's scheme is plug and play friendly and fits Brandon's big arm and sneaky mobility. 6'3.5" now. He grew an inch over the weekend, apparently. 195 pounds, but he lost 5 pounds. He's the number 13 overall prospect in the 2026 class. So don't think for a second that this guy isn't of Nico's ilk. And it's what I want to point out in the column that I believe is up on offthehooksports.com. This is in some ways, it hasn't produced on the field yet, but from a quarterback standpoint, these are glory days. Just recruiting. These are glory days. You're securing the guy in your backyard in McIntyre. You're going out west and getting a guy that could have gone anywhere. I don't care if NIL paid for it or not. You get a high 4-star guy in Merklinger who comes down the pike, despite the fact that you just got Nico. He's willing to compete. Same for McIntyre and Faizon Brandon, willing to compete. I mean, and part of this is the backdrop, and the backdrop is guys know they can transfer, so they'll give you a run. But still, you talk about, I don't honestly think that there has been more highly rated quarterback prospects on Tennessee's campus. And
no, I agree.
The only one I can think of that's close was he had Casey Clausen, Tim Rattay, and somebody else, and then a donkey, basically.
I mean, obviously, AJ sucks.
Okay, AJ was not the donkey.
To be fair, I mean, To be fair, I mean, when you had Peyton Manning and Brandon Stewart, and then I think Todd Helton was a highly touted quarterback. I mean, there wasn't stars at that time, but I think he could have been a good quarterback at college if he focused on football.
That's a very good one, because there was still this time where you could look at a guy and say he is good at football and he helps this team, but he is not a real football player. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah.
Ronald Curry was the same way in basketball at North Carolina. You looked at him, you're like, oh, he's up and out and he's good, but he is sports basketball. So, yeah, had Todd Helton been the only quarterback they had on the roster after Colquitt, and he hadn't gotten hurt, they would have been okay.
Yeah, they could have managed the season.
Yeah,
and so, it's funny. Exactly. So I see that. I mean, then there's obviously Peyton Manning and T. Martin together, because I do know that T. Martin was highly touted coming out of high school, wasn't he? Everybody was in love with him as a high school prospect.
Yes, and that was a statement get. We talk about how Tennessee got Heath Schuler, and it put them in the upper echelon of quarterback recruiting. Obviously, you get Peyton Manning. You do that, and then I think you take it a step further when you say, here's this guy in the heart of Alabama country, and he's coming to Tennessee, despite the fact that he's got a quarterback in front of him that could potentially stay an extra year, which he did. And, we probably overlook that as a significant recruiting victory.
That was a huge recruiting win. As a matter of fact, I mean, okay, this is going to be a weird question. Like, obviously, Peyton Manning is the biggest recruiting coup of all time, but I mean, does T. Martin rival it? He kind of rivals it as a recruiting coup.
It might be a fun column to do, because especially if I get pulled over by the Sevier County Police Department that Joey Matthews works for, had they had to go the Joey Matthews route, they don't win a championship. I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb.
Oh, wow. That's a big limb to go out on, Dave.
I mean, they opened it up and everybody got hit. And in spring practice of 98, that's when Joey Matthews went from quarterback to police officer.
Yeah, so now he...
That's when he said, that's enough of that.
I mean, I could see that. And Joey Matthews, his one touchdown pass was against Southern Miss in 2000, and the pass was deflected, and Cedric Wilson came down with it.
I remember that.